Apple's plan to destroy OpenAI.
Welcome to the All Future Podcast, where we talk all things tech throughout the week. If you have subscribed to this channel or are watching, thank you so much for doing so. If you haven't already subscribed, consider hitting that subscribe button to see videos like this throughout the week. Today, we are talking about a very interesting subject, which is about all the companies getting into AI and how we're kind of seeing them all, in a sense, taking on OpenAI. So the question here is, does big tech want OpenAI to fail? And what are your thoughts on that, Matt?
No.
All right.
That's my opening thought. There's a few things going on here. And it's one, obviously, that this landscape is constantly shifting right now. It's still very new. As much as people want to say, oh, Apple's behind in AI, or Gemini's not as good as GPT-4, or whatever it is, they'll say all these things like this. As of right now, OpenAI doesn't make a product that they really sell. Like obviously they make money because you can pay to have, I think if you don't pay, you're limited to GPT-3 right now. So, they make money through that, and then they make money licensing their stuff to people and all these kind of things. But are Apple, Meta, Google, maybe a little bit of Microsoft, even though they're highly invested in OpenAI, are they actually worried about OpenAI making a competing platform to them that takes money out of their pockets? Ways that they could do this. Well, there's the idea of OpenAI making a search system, which obviously would a direct threat to Google if they go with that. That could be cool. The problem is that right now AI kind of terrible at this for the most part. Like it can give you answers and it can do a lot of interesting things. But if you're looking at finding something on the internet, does OpenAI or any of these large language models do that more effectively than just a simple Google search? I don't think so right now. I could see them certainly surpassing it and doing it eventually, but by then Google is probably going to have Gemini pretty integrated into Google search. Yeah. On the Bing side of the house, I guess if you're someone who uses Bing search, that's already integrated in with Microsoft's AI, with OpenAI in particular. That's the model that they're using. So there's that piece of it. And there's the other piece of it is OpenAI or their subsidiaries, umbrella companies, Sam Altman, whatever, somewhere in there going to make a hardware thing. And we know that Johnny Ive, famous Apple designer, is partnering with Altman to make some kind of product. But these things are still a little ways away. And I don't think it's really in a place right now where the established tech companies need to be worried about it in a way that affects their immediate moves. So that's kind of where I am on this.
Yeah. Well, the news for Apple this week is that they've open sourced 4 open ELMs, and they're confirmed they're trying to get LLMs locally on devices. So an ELM, I think, is like a collection of LLMs. There is a term that it stands for that I have forgotten now. But there's so many terms. That's why I'm forgetting this. Because Realm, it's LLM,
the
ELM.
problem is like all of AI is still run by engineers.
Yeah.
So every term is so engineering heavy with acronyms and obscure phrasing and words. You tell the marketing people haven't taken this over yet. So.
Yeah. But essentially, it's kind of clear that it's Apple's goal to transition LLMs to the iPhone to increase sales. And Google wants to stay this leader in their main business, which is search. And Meta wants to remain the leader in social media. So all these companies, it's kind of like, where does AI really fit into their thing? But they know that they have to do it. And that would be what we're kind of gearing towards or arguing is like them trying to take out OpenAI, because they know there's something big here and OpenAI might take us down if we don't invest in this and bring it to our products, and then bring it to our products in a way that people are locked in and don't have the need to go elsewhere to OpenAI and maybe pay for that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big thing is when are you going to have any AI that's so proprietary and so good that people are locked into it? And right now that doesn't really exist. I mean, there's all these, you do all these benchmark tests and they'll say well, this language model is accurate 90% and this one is 90.2%. They go through all these different things to try to say which models are better right now, but it's still so early in this that it's not really clear how it's all going to shake out. To be clear, I do think OpenAI has incredible technology. I do think that they are the leaders in large language models. They certainly have deployed the one that is the kind of flashiest, the one that's most talked about,
Yeah.
But still a lot of other stuff out there that's being used a lot too. Llama is becoming more and more popular, which is the Meta one, which is also open source. So anyone can download and use it for research and things like that. They just recently, like, I got a confession to make, Ryan. There's one reality television show that I like. I don't watch a lot of reality TV show, but The Circle on Netflix cracks me up every time. Here's the setup. There's a bunch of people. They're sequestered in apartments. They can only talk to each other through social media. They make this fake social media platform. On the current season, they have an AI running llama playing as a player. So everyone else thinks it's a human.
Nice.
And the AI comes up with its own strategy. Basically, after watching, they trained it on other old episodes. So it knows that it should always try to be in the middle of votes and like in the middle of like don't make any waves. Always make slight jokes but seem endearing. So that's its strategy every time, and it's winning. Because and they even told the players there's an AI in the game, and they start witch hunts against other humans, like thinking, "Oh, that's too weird that this person knows this. They must be an AI." The AI, meanwhile, is going like, I can't seem too smart because then they'll know I'm an AI. So super well done. I recommend watching the first few episodes of this season of The Circle if you're into AI stuff. It's just fun to watch.
Yeah.
But it back to my point about Llama as being the one that uses this open source stuff, is that this stuff's already out there and being used by a lot of people. So and in really interesting ways, and that's just going to keep going. And to this thing that Apple just released, which is another open source modeling that you can go download right now if you're an AI. Well, anyone can download it, but probably only if you're an AI researcher would you go download this right now. It's cool that they're making all this stuff OpenAI, and if you read the kind of the white paper that's attached to the Apple release, they specifically talk about, hey, as these things grow bigger, we need to make sure there's a level of transparency in how they're operating, so they're for open source. I think there's a misunderstanding in the world that open source means free or charity or something like that, which is not true at all. Not true at all. Apple has a ton of open source things already. Swift is open source. They use that, makes apps for Apple. Like anyone can download that and use it. They don't charge for that. Apple has, I think it's just opensource.apple.com. You can go to and see the list of open source stuff that Apple makes. Yeah. ChatGPT, obviously open source by OpenAI. Llama for Meta, open source. Like a lot of the stuff is open source. The Firefox browser, all of Mozilla and all that's all open source. That makes billions of dollars, you know? So just because something's open source doesn't mean that they can't make these profits on them. But the question is right now, it's not really like, oh, the software's here, it's open source. How do we then turn that into a product? Whether it's a software product or a hardware product. And really no one's cracked that code yet in a really compelling way.
Yeah. It seems like that's Apple's overall goal. I would guess it's everyone's overall goal, especially when we're seeing Rabbit devices and stuff. But Apple's overall goal is to get LLMs to be smaller and be able to be run on things like iPhones. But at the same time, it's kind of creating this interesting thing, this dichotomy, I guess, where we're seeing that's their goal, but all of these things that they're talking about and releasing, they're running them on pretty powerful machines. So I think it was like this one and the LLMs that they open sourced recently, they were running on, one was an Intel machine that was really powerful, obviously a Mac, and then the other one was an M2 Max MacBook, I believe. Yeah, MacBook Pro running macOS 14.4.1. So these have really good specs. That's not something, if it requires that level of power to run, we're not seeing that on an iPhone tomorrow or at WWDC in a month. But it's, I don't know, it's exciting to see these things in their big form, but it also, it's like, is this ever going to, that big form, is it ever going to make its way to a small device, or are we going to need big devices?
We were just talking about this when we were talking about the iPad in another video, is that the idea of like, if you're going to start marketing things as the best device for AI, and if you want to start running a lot of local AI stuff, the kind of baseline specs aren't really going to cut it anymore. Like where, especially on the RAM side, there's just not enough RAM in an iPhone to really effectively do this stuff. I believe an iPhone has 6 gigs of RAM, so a small amount compared to these machines that they're using.
I think it was 64 gigs on the M2 Max.
Yeah. So I mean, they're running way bigger machines. Yeah, and then on the PC one they were running, I know it had like a 4090 graphics card, like all this kind of stuff. Like, so it's like stuff that's just not in a regular Apple kind of products. Apple kind of did this shift when they committed to the M series chip, and that the GPU and the CPU are existing on the same chips. So, most Apple machines, there's no putting GPUs in them because it's already built. It's in there already. It's in the chip. There's no slot for a GPU in a Mac Studio, right? So, are they going to have to start thinking about what we're putting in those M series chips? Is that when we talked about the M4 being in the iPad? Is that going to be the big thing with the M4? As it goes, hey, we can do so much more VRAM with this, blah blah blah. It's so much. The GPU side of it is so much more powerful. Is that what they're going to have to need to do? And are we going to have just, like I said, loading more RAM into something like an iPhone? Like an iPhone, really, I mean, if you look at what people need to run local language models or any kind of AI model that they're training stuff, bottom of the barrel is maybe 16 gigs, but that probably still sucks, right? Like most of these people are running at least 64, really 128 on a lot of these crazy things, right? So like you're going to need a lot more powerful devices than we have now if you want to run it local, which I think is what Apple wants to do. And I think they're coming at it from two sides. If we look at what these language models that just released did, if we look at some of the companies they're acquiring, they're trying to make the actual hardware requirements less by making the actual language model more efficient. And then they're going to have to make the chips that much more powerful, smaller, less battery consumption, all this kind of stuff to still make them work mobile. And then somewhere in the middle, we get a cool local language model.
Yeah, I've seen a bunch of different angles where people are talking about the biggest thing going forward ultimately is actually just energy needs. Because in general, for life and for humans and expansion, and we're using more electricity, we're switching to electrification on cars and stuff, but AI is going to require tons of energy. So that's like the overarching thing. But then there's going to be compute power. And to me, it raises the question of we have these home devices. I think a lot of people are getting away from having like a desktop computer. They might just have an iPad or something. But in the future, are you going to have like your machine that you never actually touch, but it's just your super powerful $4,000 or $5,000 computer that just lives to run all of your local AI stuff?
I 100% think that's where we're going, right? And Apple's going to offer this product, right? It's going to look like a Mac Studio kind of thing. They're going to call it, I don't know, the Mac Siri Home or something, whatever. I don't know, if they keep using that kind of marketing terms for it. But it's going to be a machine that lives in your house, super powerful, that's connected to your devices. And that way you don't have to go around with an iPhone with an incredible power requirement, an incredible computing requirement, but you could still have the privacy and safety, however you want to call it, of running a local model because it runs from your home server instead of going out to the cloud or something.
So if we look today, the Mac Studio is like $4,000 about. The MacBook Pro M3 Max model is about $4,000 if you get it fully spec'd out. A Mac Pro kind of doubles that, but that has the room for expansion, so about $8,000 or so. So it's this way of, we've talked about with different products, of Apple to get into a threshold of getting us to pay more for something. And they're figuring out a way with, I think, AI stuff here. And maybe they haven't even foreseen that. It's not even that was the goal, but it's like, oh, this is going to become a requirement.
I think they're shocked by this, and their whole thing. I think their roadmap was Vision OS and all this kind of stuff, right? Like visual computing, whatever you want to call it. And then they go, wait a second, guys. This is whole AI thing. We talked about this in another video. How all of Mac sales are 7% or whatever of the revenue for Apple, so like a pretty small amount of their overall revenue. How do I grow that? And especially if you're in a world where you're Apple and you're like, well, smartphone sales are now just increasing with the population increase. We're not selling more smartphones to more. Everyone who wants a smartphone has one. We're not selling more of those things. But not everyone has an AI machine at home right now. And this is a way we can do that. This is a way we can re-engage Mac sales. And those numbers you were just talking about, like that's the price for the high-end spec'd out ones, they can come to some more reasonable prices, I think, especially if they're kind of marketing it as a home AI machine. Because you can cut some of the stuff out of it you don't really need. So,
absolutely.
So, I mean, I could see them making a $1,500, $1,999, something like that kind of price point device that looks kind of like a Mac Studio does now. And it's, you just plug this into your home router, and then it becomes your AI brains for your whole life.
Yeah.
And that's a way they can get into a new product category, because that is a product category that doesn't really exist right now. Home AI brains. So
It's very true.
yeah. Maybe we should make that. Never mind. Let's censor this. Let's invest and do it ourselves.
We're going to make our own home AI brains. All this to say, we're seeing these big tech companies realizing that they want to take on OpenAI, and they may even have a way to offer a really expensive product in the meantime. But what could be more interesting is actually seeing these companies partner, and we may see that in another video.
They're going to get our money either way.